Welcome to this week's 5 Minutes of Revelation, and today in those 5 minutes I want to encourage you with a great verse from James 1, and that's verse 13, because here God is saying, God cannot be tempted with evil, and He Himself tempteth no man. Isn't this a great verse? See, because many of us have thought, well, God is the one that tempts me. God is the one that brings bad things into my life to tempt me, to see if I will overcome, to see if I will fail. He's the one that brings bad things into my life. But see, here it says very clearly that God is not the one who tempts you. He cannot be tempted by evil, and He is never the one that tempts you. And that's very important for you to realize. See, because the thing with temptation is that when you're tempted to do something, then you know the right thing to do. Now it's your choice whether you choose the path of life, where you say, I know the right thing to do, so I'm not going to yield to this temptation, or you choose the path of death, where you say, well, I'm just going to yield to this temptation, and then when you yield to it, it brings forth sin, and then when this sin is fully grown, it will bring forth death. That's what James 1 verse 14 to 15 says. So when you're tempted, you have the choice to either choose life or death. So it's a very serious thing. And you can use it for your own destruction, but if you're smart, you will use it to grow, to get built up, and to make more room for even greater blessings in your life. See, because God is never the one that tempts you. But in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13 it says that God will allow certain temptations to come into your life if He's 100% certain that you can overcome them. Because you need to overcome certain temptations for you to grow in faith, to build up your faith, and to get to the point where you can live in all those blessings, yet not fall into sin at the same time. So when a temptation comes into your life, you need to know that it's not from God, but you also need to know that you can overcome it with 100% certainty. You have exactly what it takes to overcome it. And God is right behind you, wanting you to overcome it, to resist it. Because the moment you overcome that temptation, the moment you resist it, you open the room for even greater blessing in your life. See, when the devil brings temptation into your life, you need to know that it's the devil's temptation. And when you overcome it, you can receive even greater blessings from God. So when you are tempted by sickness, by poverty, by lack, by lust, or if it's by money, you need to practice resisting that temptation. Because when you resist that, then you make room for God's blessing in your life. So when you're tempted to receive sickness into your life, for example, or you're tempted to believe that God wants you to be poor, you don't resist that, what everyone else is saying. You don't resist people saying, well, God wants you to be poor, God doesn't want you to have money. Or when you're tempted to focus your whole life on just getting more money and collecting more and more, then you need to resist that temptation to do that. Because when you do that, you will open more room for God's blessing. Because God's plan for your life is to get you to the point where you have no lack, and at the same time you don't live in sin and you don't live in death. See, because when you resist temptation, James 1 verse 4 says that you will be perfect and entire, lacking nothing after you resist that temptation. So you need to resist the temptation for you to get to the point where you lack in no area of your life and you still don't live in sin and death. And I think the easiest way to understand it is simply this. You won't give your child $10,000 or 10,000 euros if you don't know that he can do well with the 10 euros or the $10 you just gave him. See, and that's the same thing with God. God cannot give greater blessings to you. God cannot give more power, more of His ability to you if He can't be sure that you can do well with it. If He can't be sure that you will use it to crush the devil and to give him no place in your life and the life of your family. And that's why it's so important for you to overcome the temptations, to overcome them when they get to you. See, God is not the one that brings them, but God is right behind you telling you, overcome this, Get through this, resist that temptation, because on the other side, there's even greater blessings. And that's why I'm here to encourage you today. So take this with you, be blessed by that. Don't forget to read your chapter a day, and I'll see you again next week.